Jazakallah khair. Yes, we'll take it now. Thank you very much. Again, I think there's a lot of historic context there, and from a slightly different angle. Hopefully, inshallah, there's benefit in the detail that we learned from Professor Al-Ghamati. I know, mashallah, is a depth of knowledge and has a lot to share, but it was a bit unfair on him, to be honest. We only gave him 10 to 15 minutes, and it's a vast topic. So I feel like I came to fix the TV by there. I wasn't rushing you off the stage. There was something came up on the screen. Again, there's lots to do, and again, today is one of those steps within the milestones that we are undertaking to ensure that the cause for Palestine and the people of Palestine are not forgotten and are not abandoned. And I'm sure as we look at the fallout from today's gathering and the next steps and the action that we need to take, there'll be lots for us to learn, and more those that have the ability, the capacity, the time to gather and to actually take action. We can ask people like Professor Al-Ghamati to come and share his wisdom and give us the lessons that they have learned from their experience. But of course, one of the things that we can do on a local level is, in addition to the national protests, and I think it's important that we continue to raise the profile and the presence here in our local community. As I said, we've not seen activism like this for a very long time. But I do feel that there are the usual suspects that are constantly out and about and are constantly raising the flag for Palestine and are constantly making an effort. And those are people that are truly inspiring for all of us. And so what I wanted to do is to ask one of those people that has led lots of initiatives and activities that has brought people together to just share a few reflections and a few things that they have done to try to continue to raise the flag for Palestine and bring people together. Someone that's local and that's brought people together, and we've had the pleasure of attending many events together and supporting each other on this cause. And that is Jean Sykes, who's one of our local activists. Give her a big warm welcome, please.
Can I start by asking, if I speak without a microphone, can you hear me at the back? Yes. That's yours. Okay. When I was first approached by Isra to speak at this event, my initial response was no way. There are others that are far more knowledgeable than I and have been raising awareness of the plight of the Palestinian people for so much longer. However, Israel's approach did make me review the last year, its impact upon myself, family, friends, and the wider community. And what a small achievement a few of us have actually made in raising further the awareness, but raising money as well. So when Imam Mizan made a similar approach the following morning, with some trepidation, I agreed. My brief for this afternoon is to talk about the fundraising initiatives I, with others, have been involved in, both raising money and awareness for the horrors faced by the people of Palestine, and how together we can build upon the success of these events, raise even more monies to provide humanitarian aid, and may I add, build even further the strong and emotionally supportive relationships that have started across our communities. I became in fundraising totally by accident when I foolishly expressed an interest in supporting another member of the Humber Palestinian Support Group raise monies for Palestine at the Ella Street Festival. He booked the stalls, signed people up to manage, resource and staff them, and then went off an extended holiday to warmer climes. The weeks and days prior to the festival can best be described as manic, anxious making for all involved, and we all kept a close eye on our weather apps. The day arrived and the weather forecast was right. There was heavy rain which did not stop until lunchtime. Despite this, and a food inspector serving notice on the food element of our venture, people came, expressed their support for the people of Palestine, what we were doing to raise funds to support humanitarian aid, and spent their money. We raised £1,750 that day, and that was divided between medical aid for Palestine and Gaza Educates Medics. I will not pretend it was not hard work, but fun was also had, and it brought people together. Building on the success of this event, a second joint fundraising initiative was planned for the 10th of August, which unfortunately had to be postponed on the advice of the police as they were concerned for people's safety. The far right had brought their hate to the city the previous week and caused havoc and built upon the fear many in the city sadly already experienced. The riots in Hull on the 3rd of August were racist, Islamophobic and designed to spread hate and division. However, some said not in my city, and many residents turned up the next day to assist in the clean-up. As a direct result of the events of the 3rd of August, some residents of Ella Street, possibly the same ones that organised the festival, invited members of the Pearson Park Mosque for tea and cake. The event was well supported, and I can vouch that there was lots of laughter, fun, great food, and new relationships were formed. Residents of Ella Street accepted an invitation from the mosque to be part of its Sharing Stories event at the mosque in Pearson Park on the 28th of September. Believe it or not, I did not gate crash that one, as I was busy setting up another event in the pavilion. But I did see on that day lots of smiling people leaving the mosque to join us in the pavilion, deep in conversation, and it did look as though they'd had a really good morning. But before I talk about the tea party of last Saturday, gosh, it seems ages ago, I must mention the event of the 31st of August, which also took place in Pearson Park and raised money for a number of agencies providing relief to the people of Palestine. It was a joyous event. Tables, chairs and gazebos were in place in good time for the people to set up, as well as the stall selling all manner of things in the park. There was delicious food and coffee available. Games were organised. The sun shone. So many people attended, and the park was at last as it was intended to be, a place for people to meet, play, talk, have fun and meet their neighbours. An astonishing £9,007.94 for humanitarian support was made on that day. Last Saturday's tea party in the park was also well attended, and once again the sun shone on us. By chance, I've already said about the open day at the mosque, so I'm not going to repeat myself on that. The atmosphere on the day was great. There were a variety of stalls, a raffle, a tombola. There was tea and cake, all of which looked delicious, but sadly I didn't get the opportunity to sample. By working on that stall, I was astonished by just how much cake a small percentage of the whole population can eat. But by doing so, they contributed another £2,172.82. That money again was split between Medical Aid for Palestine and Gaza Educates Medics. Over the three events, almost £12,000 was raised to support humanitarian aid for Palestine. A drop in the ocean as far as what is needed, but something as opposed to nothing, and it was made in only 3 months. Whilst all three fundraisers have had a different feel to them, all have taken hard work in the planning, preparation, and as well as the effort on the day, but they have clearly demonstrated what can be achieved when a group of people with shared values and a common aim come together. People gave of their time and energy to ensure that each event was successful and were rewarded by the donations given and the generosity of those that attended. I could, if you want, go through a list of the individuals and businesses who made this happen, but it would take too long. And besides, they all know who they were. At the risk of sounding a bit pompous, I would like to express my thanks to everybody involved for making this happen and for the relationships that have been formed as a result. By being involved in these events, I feel closer to the community in which I live than I have ever felt before. And if others feel the same way, that has been a positive outcome. We do have some ideas about future events, and one of these we would like to actually make happen at the Lazat restaurant and hotel out towards Skidby. We understand the owner of the hotel is sympathetic to the cause, so if anybody knows them, could they please arrange an introduction for us so we can go and speak to them? Thank you. The man is stood next to me.
Sorry, I'm just sorting this screen out.
I understand you know the owner as well. Anyhow, what we do know is that we can't stop here, as our fundraising efforts will be required for years to come for both Palestine and sadly for Lebanon too. Whether we do this by direct meetings, via a WhatsApp group, I don't know, but do it we must. We can do more, and every time we will do it better. It only takes will and determination. Thanks for listening, and free Palestine.
Thank you, Jean. Technical issues while you were speaking, so I was trying to sort that out, and I'll try and sort that out in between this and the next speaker. I know we've had quite a few speeches so far, but I think just to let everybody know, there will be a short break soon after the next couple of speakers, and we will be serving the delicious food that has been promised to everyone. And we'll have a break to just take a bit, get to know each other and have some conversations, see the stalls outside where you'll be able to buy merchandise where all the profits from the sales will go to support the crisis response team, its activities, and also some of the charities that we work with. So we will have a break shortly. I found Jean's talk really inspiring, not just because of the speech itself, but actually what it represents and all the different activities that you guys have done. And all the different efforts, and it goes to show that when a few people come together, the amount of difference that we can all make. I mean, I'm not sure how many of us in the room have 10, 15, 20,000 pounds to just give to a cause like this, but when you bring a community together and we all do our small part and we all contribute, it really does make a difference. And all of the charities that you've talked about are doing amazing work, and I'm really grateful. So give Jean and the group a massive, massive round of applause. And a big part of sharing that was I hope that it inspires others in the room to do something similar. If you have a network of people, which I think we all do, and want to organize something, you can reach out to either the crisis response team. I'm sure Jean will be able to support as well. And there's lots of people in the room that are willing to support. There's places like this venue that we can organize events in. We can do things in the park, maybe when the weather starts to get a bit better again, although we've had great weather today, alhamdulillah. But there's lots of things that we can all do, and Jean's an example of how if you take a bit of action, people will come together, and together we can make a real difference. So thank you once again. We're going to move on now, and we're going to have a few words from Anthony Garrett, who I think is he here? Ah, there he is. And who's part of the Palestine Solidarity Group and campaigns, and has been heavily involved with activism for the people of Palestine. Obviously there's lots of initiatives that are happening in the city, and Anthony's been part of that as well. So if I can ask you to come up and give him a nice round warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Yes, I've been introduced, so I don't have to do that, thankfully. Just to say about that last speaker, Jean, those figures of £2,000, £1,900 that were raised, the lovely thing about that is that's by people putting £1 in, £2, £5, buying a piece of cake, getting a bag or whatever it may be. People don't have to spend a lot of money, but if quite a lot of people spend little bits of money, it becomes those sorts of figures, and that's just so inspiring to hear about, really. Yes, so the Humber Palestine Solidarity Campaign is affiliated to the national campaign. I'm guessing a lot of people will know about it. If you don't, it's the main national campaign for the freedom of Palestinians and their general sort of needs. That's been around for a good few years. Off the top of my head, I don't know when it started, but we're affiliated to that for the Humber area. And we started in 2019 when probably about 5 or 6 of us got together from a mixture of Grimsby and Hull and Market Wheaton and Withensea, so all around that Humber area. And we came together, we had a meeting, and we said there hasn't been sort of any formal campaign. There have been other things happening for instance, I think it was in 2014, there were campaigns arranged, there were marches and things at that time, but there wasn't anything consistent happening in this area to help Palestinians. And so we got together and we had a meeting, and what happened next? We had the pandemic and everything locked down, and we couldn't have any more meetings. I think we perhaps had a couple of stalls out as well, and so everything had to change. We carried on via Zoom, and then when we could, we got back out again, and we had a stall running which raised money for the Medical Aid for Palestinians, MAP, and sold badges and things like that. And then the present genocide started happening as well. Now, this meeting is about 1 year of genocide, and I think, as one of the speakers said before, the genocide started much longer before that. I mean, there was the 2014 massacre, and there have been many more before that, and even since that, there's been intrusion by the IDF into both the West Bank and Gaza. People have died, people have been taken into what they call administrative detention, but otherwise you could just call them hostages and such like. So the campaign recognises that, and has recognised that from before October the 7th. When October the 7th came, we found that there was a much greater number of people who were interested in Palestine. Through our WhatsApp group, through our Facebook group, we managed to make contacts with people from various parts of the area, and we formed some demonstrations. We had marches around the city, and we showed the city that there were people here who cared about what was happening in Gaza. There were people, I mean, I talked to people on the marches that were from Gaza, had family in Gaza. There were a number of connections, and it was good to see that Hull had those connections, but it was so sad to hear the stories about what was happening with their families. So the idea of the campaign is to keep everything in the public eye in Hull. Sorry, not in Hull, in the Humber area, but predominantly things are happening in Hull. When there aren't demonstrations going on, we might be campaigning outside Barclays. We might be, we'll have a stall out very often on a Saturday. There's a stall that goes up into, is it Princess Avenue or Newland Avenue? Newland Avenue, yeah, there's a stall that goes up into Newland Avenue on Thursdays sometimes. We try and keep a presence for the support of Palestinians. Those people, just to say as well, the stall is outside Zebra on Newland Avenue, the Zebra shop. Zebra shop has had problems when they put posters in the window, and and people have actually complained about them having posters there supporting the freedom of Palestinians. The other thing that we're very much in support of is BDS. The professor from York gave a really good sort of mention of BDS, talked about that very much on the wider scale as well, because I mean, you were talking about councils and much wider support for sanctions and not investing, but with us on our local basis, and maybe we need to talk to York and go down those lines as well. But so far we've been focusing very much on the personal side of BDS, the side that you and I can take part in. Too many items to mention, but it's it's looking at the items which are on the boycott list and thinking, how can I buy something different? How can I have something which I'm still going to enjoy? So I like a cup of coffee, but I'm not going to go to Costa or Starbucks or these other places. Why not just go to an independent coffee place? You're helping out an independent retailer rather than a big mass marketplace, and also you're helping the Palestinians, because these small independent places will not be investing in the Israeli cause. So it's little things like that. Do I want to drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi, or do I want to go for various ones, like there's a Palestine cola, there's a bar cola, there are various others. For my personal business, I'm looking at what other options I can reasonably use as well. So it's doing these things on a personal basis, looking at those things. And the Humber campaign is out there. It's trying to bring, it's trying to show the people of Hull that we care. And sometimes we get resistance. And sometimes we get lovely, I mean, especially with the vigil, the medical vigil, get lots of hoots and of horns in support as well. And those have increased over time. It's been very noticeable that the support for Palestine has increased over this last year, even though this last year is not the history of Palestinian oppression. What I want to sort of, so I'll bring an end to, is to say that anyone here is able to become involved. We have a WhatsApp group, we have a Facebook group. If you want to approach me at some point, possibly Jean as well, are you an admin for? Yeah, so either Jean or myself, if you want to approach us, we can take your details and we can add you to the WhatsApp group. On Facebook, you can search out for Humber Palestine campaign, and we can add you to that as well, so you get an idea of what's happening. But the other thing is that on the organising side, we still really have too few people doing the admin and the organisation. And what this means is that we can't keep up the sort of momentum that we would like and many other people would like, because there just isn't the time for those people who are doing it. So if there's anyone who can help us with that side, sorry, I think I lost the microphone there. Anyone who can help us with that side of things would be really helpful, because if we can have 2 or 3 people who can do each of the jobs for organising, say, marches and things, then we can perhaps just keep that momentum going, and then people and keep it in the loop. And what was said earlier on about desensitising I think it was you, Professor, wasn't it? So about the desensitisation over the year that we've had on TV. I think that's very true, and it's about us trying to keep it into people's keep people's minds, because otherwise it goes off the TV, people lose that interest in supporting. Anyway, thank you very much, and do come up to me or Jean and say, can I be on the WhatsApp group?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Anthony. And if you see me edging closer to you on the stage, that's a sign that your time is up. So for any more speakers, that's a subtle way of sharing. But yeah, the Palestine Solidarity Campaign has been something that, not just locally, but nationally, has been a real backbone of support for the people of Palestine. Has been really standing up with regards to BDS and taking lessons from Professor Al-Gamati's speech, and of course the biggest lesson in maybe some of our lifetimes, the lesson from South Africa. We know how successful the BDS movement was, and it continues to be, and hopefully it will be one of the main tools that sees the liberation of Palestine one day, inshallah. So if you can, I feel the pain that these guys go through, because any organization, you always find that there's a very small handful of people that are constantly doing the work, that are constantly organizing, that are constantly mobilizing and putting time in behind the scenes to make things happen. And then obviously people turn up on the day and enjoy themselves, and they take part in activities and they support the cause, which is absolutely essential and phenomenal, and we appreciate it. But the small group of people do get burned out. So if anybody does, after today, if not before today, if today's inspired you to do something and to say, you know what, I'm going to commit a bit of my time for the cause of Palestine, for the people of Palestine, then the Palestine Solidarity Campaign is a really important organization. Please do find out Jean and Anthony during the break, which will be after our next speaker. You'll be glad to hear. And get involved and give your time and attend those events, inshallah. So before the lunch break, it's a bit of a late lunch, but before you get your meals served to you, which will be served in your seats, by the way, so you don't all need to rush out. After the next speaker, I ask you all just to stay seated. Food will come to you, and then we'll have a short break. And then once you've eaten, you can get up and stretch your legs, etc. But before we do that, I'm going to ask our next speaker, who is a trade unionist, but also an activist that's being involved with standing against a lot of the hate that's been coming into our city, all the far right, the fascists that over the recent months have caused havoc, not just in Hull, but across the country. One of the things that I think is essential when that happens is for a group of people, or all of us as a community, to stand against it and not to give them a free pass. And not everybody feels comfortable in doing that, but there are a few that have done that, that have stood up, that have defended and stood on the right side of history. And our next speaker hopefully represents that. It's Mike Whale. Please give him a nice warm welcome.
Well, thanks very much to the organisers for inviting me to come and speak to you today. I'm very, very aware that the last speaker before food is usually the most unpopular speaker, and I'll do my very best to be as quick as I can and not repeat all the points. But I feel I have to start by commenting on the absolute disaster that has happened in Gaza. It would be wrong, I think, to turn up here and just start saying, well, I think we should do this, I think we should do that, without noting, on behalf of people perhaps not directly connected, but who've watched the scenes unfold on a daily basis on the television. And I don't think you can underestimate the impact that seeing those images of bomb buildings, of bodies lying unburied in the streets, has had on ordinary people in this country. Because I think the demonstrations that have taken place, particularly the national demonstrations, have been huge. They've been huge, even in proportion to past big demonstrations in this country. And I think that that's an indication that you are not alone. That for the vast majority, I believe, and I'm not just saying this to be popular, I genuinely believe the vast majority of people in this country are in favour of a ceasefire, would condemn what Israel, the state of Israel, is doing, and would support and want to get as much aid as possible in to help those that have suffered at the hands of the Israeli state in Gaza. And I have to say, I agree with the speakers that have gone before. I don't want to just repeat what's been said. But increasingly now it looks like we're going to see a similar situation evolve in Lebanon. And the ongoing problems, which have been largely forgotten on the West Bank, where Israeli settlers, with impunity, with the backing of the Israeli Defence Force, have raided and attacked and murdered Palestinians on the West Bank. It is quite clear to me that Netanyahu is desperately trying to eradicate, as he sees it, any opposition whatsoever to himself. And I think that we have to continue to do what we've already been doing, which is to demonstrate, which is to stand up in all the different forums. Now, I come here as a trade unionist, and Hull and District Trades Council has discussed the question of Gaza and the wider Middle Eastern problems on a whole number of occasions over the last year, but also, as other speakers have hinted, this is not a new problem. It's a more developed, horrible problem, but it's a problem that has gone on for decades. The squeezing of Gaza by Israel before, let alone the bombing that's taken place, but the economic squeezing, the incursions, the pass laws and all the rest of it that have been put in place are an indication of a racist government that does not treat everybody the same. In fact, I think I'm right in saying that Netanyahu attempted to get through some law changes in Israel that would change Israel, which nominally at least is a secular state, into a state of the Jews. And that is something which I'm pleased to say has been resisted. And I'm going to raise a few points, perhaps for you to think about, that you might not immediately agree with. But in terms of the way forward, I think I agree that targeted sanctions can be a very effective method of putting pressure on governments. But I would say that in and of itself will not change the situation in Israel. That is not an excuse not to do it, but I think we have to look at how we can bring about change, and how change can come about. And I believe that lies in the hands of Palestinian workers, the wider Arab working class, and also, and this may be controversial in this meeting, I don't completely rule out the Israeli working class either, because one of the things that has heartened me enormously in the last few weeks was the general strike which took place in Israel. Now let's be clear, that general strike was not in support of the Palestinians. It was over the issue of hostages. But what it shows is that Israel is not a monolith, that there are cracks and divisions which can be exploited. And if the Israeli working class, and there have been actions involving Israeli workers and Palestinian workers in the past through the trade union movement, then I think that could be a method of changing things. Because I'll be quite honest with you, I support every step that has been put forward to get some kind of a peace, a ceasefire. Who wouldn't? But how many ceasefires have we had in the past? How many agreements, how many United Nations resolutions have we had in the past? I lose count. I think the only force capable of ensuring peace and tranquility in what should be a beautiful land are the workers and peasants of the Middle East, and maybe the Israeli working class as well. As a trade unionist, I work on the basis of workers' solidarity. That applies in this country. I also believe it applies internationally. And that's the programme that I think could take, or could in the long term, at the moment it's carnage, but in the long term, it could resolve the problems in Gaza, in Palestine, and in the wider Middle East, which is too big a subject to even begin to go into, particularly with food about to be served. So I'll leave you with that thought for the future, and thanks very much for inviting me and listening.
Thank you, Mike. I think it's refreshing to hear an entirely different perspective maybe to what we're used to, and I think that's why when the organisers were putting together the plan, it was important to have that perspective as well. There are lots of issues that need to be tackled, and of course the illegal settlements and the occupation, the apartheid that has been legally proven by Amnesty International, and the long-term liberation of the people of Palestine. These are all things that we all have a role to play in for years and maybe even generations to come. And I hope that today is another step in that direction. But of course, for many of us, we know that immediately, if there isn't a ceasefire and if there isn't an end to arms sales to Israel, then we can't look at the long-term liberation of the people of Palestine. So appreciate the words that have been shared. As you can see, the food has arrived and it will be passed down. Because we haven't got a large banqueting hall here, we are going to, in the true spirit of solidarity, we're going to pass the parcel down the rows, and food will reach every single one of you, and all of you will have food, inshallah. But if you can just wait till the volunteers share out the food so that everybody has their meal first, and then afterwards, if anybody needs to go and stretch their legs or grab a coffee or go to the bathroom or whatever, you're more than welcome to do that, inshallah. But for now, we're going to take a break for about half an hour to 40 minutes where you'll have time to have your food. But remember, the most important part, at least in my opinion anyway, will be after the meal, where we will be speaking directly, inshallah, to doctors who are in Gaza, who, inshallah, we will have a live link. I know the screen has gone off, but we'll resurrect it, inshallah. And we'll hear directly from people on the ground in Gaza, and also from an eyewitness account from those that have been to Gaza as well. So for now, enjoy the food, and we'll be back with you after the break. I don't mind a round of applause as well if you want to give me one. That's fine. Thank you.